All right. So a very warm good morning or good afternoon, depending upon the time zone you are in. And I'm really glad to have amazing panelists with us today in the e-commerce summit uh, 2021 organized by Analito Automation. And we have two unique individuals from the world of retail and e-commerce who are going to share a lot of amazing thoughts and experiences that they have, which will allow you to learn from them. Without further ado, let me make a formal introduction of our panelists. First, we have on the panel is Cadogan Price. Cadogan is the founder of his brand Cadogan. And a brief bio about him. Cadogan's aspiration of starting a fashion label started from an early age, and he was encouraged to cultivate his creative side and progressed as an emerging artist. It was in the studio he learned the relevance of detailing, how in punctuated forms it can transform something into extraordinary. And his first taste of the fashion business was working part-time at Abercrombie and Fitch, discovering the theater of retail and storytelling through multi-sensory experiences. Cadogan possessed an aptitude for ideation. It was while studying for his bachelor's degree in marketing and entrepreneurship at University of Arizona that Cadogan pursued launching a successful sports startup, which confirmed his mind for the enterprise. And after his university education, he went on to pursue his second passion in sports marketing. And while living in Barcelona, he has executed a regional marketing campaign, and his career advanced out for a role in Singapore as an Asia Pacific Director of Sales and Operation for a world leading provider of media software. And he has managed a portfolio worth $56 million dollars and has spent his career in executing visionary strategies which have led to unprecedented growth. And his brand, Cadogan, was launched in 2017, and it's an internationally styled trans-seasonal clothing line. And his own personal belief is strive for greatness, live abundantly, always be humble, which is a spirit that infuses the Cadogan brand. Cadogan, welcome to the panel. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Wonderful. The next we have on the panel with us is Ben Freeman. Ben is the VP and partner direct at Powerplay Retail, and Ben is running this amazing digital agency and which connects brands with retailers for better sales and to help them grow and scale. And their mantra is sell in, sell through, and sell more, has made them stand out and work their way up to offer and do various integrated services and innovation for their consumers. And Ben has completed his BA in economics and Chinese from Hamilton College. Along with his education and work, he has also taken part in numerous volunteer activities. He believes in being adaptive to the situation and quickly tackling complex business issues which arise at any given point. While working a team, organizing and planning how to ensure smooth working is the way he does all his business. And he has always been given responsibilities of high position and has demonstrated leadership while working with various team. And Ben, thank you so much for joining in today on the panel.
Awesome, thanks.
Wonderful.
Glad to be here.
Great. Gentlemen, my first question for both of you, let me begin with Cadogan, is around your brand. Definitely, you have established your brand, but if you can share a little bit about your brand story, that would be really, really interesting to know.
Cadogan? Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think, growing up, I had the opportunity to be involved in the arts. I had an amazing grandmother that just was so creative in spirit and, didn't realize, I think, the imprint that had on me in such a young age. Kind of went in a much different direction professionally in those kind of early onset years, kind of pursued, corporate kind of ladder in business and had the opportunity to then move out to Singapore. And it was in Singapore that, and even before that, a little bit in New York City, where I was just kind of feeling the pinch, not necessarily living out the dream that, everything was in front of me that I could ask for, but just the creative spirit was kind of dwindling. And so, one thing led to another. I actually went back and did international design school, night school. I was working just to kind of learn a little bit about interior design, and just open up kind of the bigger kind of arena of what kind of I wanted to understand about the creative life. And so one thing led to another, and really what it comes down to is this product was developed as somebody who was in the market buying clothes, looking for, something that they just felt wasn't in the market at that time. And so, our keystone product is definitely our leather jackets. We've been able to succeed. I think a lot of it has to do with the complexity of our supply chain, which, COVID obviously allowed us to evolve even further in that process. But, sourcing and bringing materials in from disparate locations, whether that's the leather or, we use an Italian satin, bringing those together and then finishing that and having that shipped from Los Angeles. And then building a portfolio of products that really kind of speak to that styling and to that presentation. And so, as we kind of went through this journey, I think, the big thing was it just doesn't start with a product. You have to really kind of speak to your customer at a level of where they are at this day and age, where they're trying to kind of evolve into as an individual. And clothing is just a tool. Clothing is a tool that provides you access to potentially a better feeling, more confidence, a rite of passage, you feel like you sit down at a table and you're part of that setting and you belong there. So giving people what I believe is, a quality tool that allows them just to express themselves a little bit and amplify their own, personal well-being. And so, through that messaging and through that kind of product portfolio, as a brand, we continue to kind of hopefully push the boundaries, leveraging technology and innovation to help fulfill that story. So yeah, hopefully that helps.
Wonderful. Wow. So amazing. So you have an art, so you have kind of worked across the art field and you kind of taken it forward in your brand. So that's excellent. I think that's what the world is. In today's world, I think consumers are more looking forward to aesthetics, quality, and definitely design. I think the design thinking, it can take you miles ahead of competition. And
Mhm.
so excellent. Glad to know that. We'll touch upon the design aspect of your leather jacket. And because I saw on your store that a very big personality has wore that jacket in one of the very big talk shows. And wow, that's like a big USP and big validation of what consumers are loving or what consumers are looking for. Excellent, Aragon.
Appreciate it.
Ben, let me go to you. And you are also kind of doing a great thing while working with different brands, and you know the problems and the solutions. So, how did Powerplay started, and what is the core philosophy of your company?
Yeah. So, I've been in retail my entire career. So I started my career at Target in various merchandising and supply chain operational roles. And, have been working in the brick and mortar space for almost the last 10 years. And, Powerplay Retail started about 13 years ago as just a traditional manufacturer's rep. So helping brands enter the retail market and navigate the complexities that retail, faces for new brands. And so we're located in Minneapolis, and we have Best Buy and Target right in our backyard. So we started by helping bring brands into the retail landscape, primarily at Best Buy and Target. But over the past 5 to 7 years, the brand partners that we work with have been evolving, and our business has continued to evolve as well. And we've added more functionality. We've helped solve problems as our brands, continue to iterate. And about 5 years ago, we started our direct-to-consumer team. A lot of our brand partners needed to sell on Amazon, but didn't know how to do it well and didn't know how to do it in a cohesive way that aligned with their retail strategy. And so
Hmm.
at Powerplay, we wanted to help our brand partners go to market both online and offline. And effectively today, we're both a retailer, we're a rep, we're a sales and marketing organization, we're a distributor. So we work with brands across the spectrum, approximately 85 brands across every major product category.
Mhm.
We help them navigate the complexities of the U.S. market and international. And so for a lot of brands, we distribute into major retail.
Mhm.
For my business and my specific team, we help brands go to market in the e-commerce landscape. So we help them set up their Amazon stores. We do the listings, the creative, the marketing, the advertising support.
Mhm.
We do a lot of the back-end operational support. In addition, we've added, Walmart as a place to help our brand partners go to market on that platform, and
Mhm.
Wayfair, and we continue to add more pieces as well to primarily help our brands control their inventory, help create a consistent online and offline experience, so that wherever the customer or guest that a brand has is shopping with them, that they get that same look and feel. And that's, really why we're here, is to help our brand partners go to market, or, in any shape of retail as it's continuously evolved. And, this last year, obviously, and, it's not, I don't think, a surprise to anyone, but e-commerce was a great place to be this past year. And a lot of the brand partners that we work with, really elevated their game. Supply chain became a huge concern this last year. And, one of our key partners is Back to the Roots. And they're a company that's really geared at helping teach kids how to farm and getting people re-engaged with making product, growing organic grow kits. And, they're on a mission to really reconnect every family and kid, and just help educating, taking products for growing, for STEM, for science and education to the kids and helping grow that. And they're a key partner of ours that had just awesome success in 2020.
That's amazing. That's so nice to hear that. So you're working for a brand which is, again, taking things for education. I think that's tremendous. And as you said it rightly, the challenge that you mentioned just now, supply chain, let's talk about it a little bit. So Cadogan, I think last year and this year, definitely, the world has seen something which is extremely difficult. And I think the world is still sailing through it. And as a brand, the product that you have definitely is something which is sourcing of fabric or making things available. There are different nuts and bolts of a business that you have to kind of find your way through. So how did you manage your supply chain during this turbulent times in the last year and this year?
Yeah, no, fair enough. So I think the big benefit, I guess, to kind of where we were as a business is that we weren't starting our business, if you may. We did a bit of a reintroduction over COVID. We used that to, move to a healthier marketing stack that I think has just increased the conversations and the validity of those conversations with our customers. Moved to a new website, which has been tremendous. But, my point being is that we didn't onboard any new partners outside of the United States that were not already partners that we were working with. And so why that's important is because, in manufacturing, I think 80% of that relationship is built on trust. There's some other factors that have to come into play, payment terms and other things, but, you have to trust, especially when you're not able to be in person or present, or in your backyard, that manufacturer understands your expectations, maintains the level of quality, maintains an open dialogue, when they don't understand a new style or a question around some of that. And we were very fortunate that, having basically those relationships in place, we really had to lean on technology now to have a dialogue, and leverage, video conferencing and other facilities of that nature or channels of that nature to embrace kind of, business didn't stop, but business had to evolve to accommodate the circumstances. And so we brought in some new partners, basically to help alleviate some of that challenge. And then, what we could take ownership for was there was opportunities here within and domestically. So, we've basically gone ahead, we've introduced a whole breadth of portfolio of product that's being manufactured here in Los Angeles. I'm able to be there, whether mask on and so forth, still be able to be there in person and do fittings and other things. Since, when you bring on a new partner, like we're working on a new fabric, this new light kind of loose knit cotton, a little bit lighter weight for the summer, that'll come out in the next 2 weeks or so. The big thing there is it took 6 fittings just to get that right, let alone the fabric development. So my point being is the conversation with a new partner is very different than the conversation with a partner that you've been working with. And, being able to understand the relationship necessary for both, in order to give them the kind of the confirmation that they're also doing their part and they're doing it up to the level that we would hope they would. And so that's, it's an ongoing conversation every week, but the challenge has been just, understanding, okay, these are the parameters we have to work within. How do we better this situation? What does that look like moving forward? And ultimately, I think, moving forward in May, we're going to be on these weekly drops. So it's taken us a couple months to find our bearings within that new arena. But in doing so, we're setting ourselves actually up for greater success as we move forward. but any time change happens, it's never,
Yeah.
it's never without a bit of, conversation, challenge, and then hopefully,
Hmm.
a few weeks and months of just ironing out some of those kinks.
Wow. So you're finding the right partners, having the right partners beside you, and who
Absolutely
can
necessary.
support
Yeah.
you in absolutely amazing.
I'm a big believer in presentation. I'm a big believer in marketing. I'm a big believer in all of the other things that make up a business,
Yeah.
especially human capital. But at the
Yeah.
end of the day, if you neglect putting forward a great product, you're going to have some serious confrontation, whether it's with customers
Yes.
or just the validity of your business as you move forward. And so the keystone and cornerstone to everything we do is stems from the choice in our manufacturers and more importantly the quality of product that we able to share with the world.
Excellent. That's an amazing point that you mentioned there, and that's an insight that I think businesses can learn from, because I think it's all about creating that distinction. It's all about creating something for the consumers that they'll love and they'll appreciate, and they'll kind of share it forward. And I think you as a brand, which is in a very, very unique or niche space with a product which is again uh, going to target or appeal to a certain kind of audience with the price point, with the branding and all those aspects involved, you definitely have to create that distinction. And that can be only done by having the right partners, because I think the entire product that we see once it goes on the site, there's a huge backstory. And I think having the fabric in every piece for that apparel, how that matters. And I think you solved it, I think, by having the right partners, right, where you are. So that's an excellent insight. Thank you. Let me go to Ben and ask, Ben, for example, a brand wants to dive in or wants to venture into retail, let's say, which is kind of, let's say, which does not manufacture, but they want to start. And so which channel do you think is the most right one? Whether they should launch their own store, or whether they should start on a marketplace, build some traction there, and then they should launch their store. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, it was certainly very interesting. I mean, last year, and I know, we touched on a little bit of just some supply chain complexity, but last year around March, April-ish timeframe, almost every major retailer shut down. So Best Buy stores were closed, Target stores were closed, Walmart stores were closed, and for us, we have a large representation of consumer electronics brands, houseware brands, CPG brands, and for a lot of those brand partners, going to market in their traditional fashion just wasn't feasible. And we just saw a huge influx of brands moving obviously to the digital world for these online partners. So Target.com, BestBuy.com. And, I think the biggest, transition or change as, retail changed last year is, any SKU wanting to get into retail, wanting to go to stores, wanting to build, everything is now starting online. And that's, the direction that the retailers are heading. It's the direction that Amazon and Walmart marketplaces are heading, and Target Plus has launched their own marketplace. So a lot of these major retailers are providing that opportunity for these brand partners to get traction, get visibility, engage with their customers, get strong reviews as that starting process. And in the past, it used to be, you start with maybe a 50 store test or a 100 store test if you wanted to enter into the retail market. And now it's load your SKUs online, get customer reviews, get some traction, spend advertising efforts and grow it, which one for the retailer puts the ownership and the investment back on the brands and their business and their products and their customers, but it also allows those brands to communicate their story and engage with their customers. And that's where launching a brand on Amazon or any of these open marketplaces, and Amazon is definitely the most advanced versus a Walmart or a Target where there's a lot more red tape and restrictions. But launching a brand on Amazon in 2020 probably was one of the easiest times to do that.
Yeah.
The amount of traffic that was flowing in there and the visibility and the awareness, and Amazon's continuously adding new ways to hit customers with DSP ads or paid search, social, promotional activity. And so launching a brand on Amazon is definitely a strong way to go. I'd say doing it in conjunction with the direct to consumer site, and the big difference between both of those, for your direct to consumer site, it's a paid journey.
Yeah.
You have to buy every single customer that engages with your website. You want to look at the ROI of that, the conversion rate, looking at, how much traffic can you drive to your site, but you have to bring that traffic in. You have to constantly be investing in digital advertising or email campaigns or that holistic, marketing side of it. And all traffic has to be bought. It's obviously great long-term. It's better margin structure.
Yeah.
The power of Amazon is that with advertising support, with leveraging a lot of the tools and resources that they have to launch a brand, to help create your storefront, to give that look and feel of the way that you want and want to design, it gives you that freedom, and you're also able to tap into the organic side of Amazon.
Yeah.
So from an Amazon perspective, launching a brand, it's expensive out of the gate. You need to drive eyeballs to your listings. You need to get reviews. You need to get traction, engage with your customer. But once you get that credibility and that response, you get to take advantage of the largest search engine and one of the largest traffic driving websites in retail. And so it's a very powerful tool. And our goal with any brand that's launching is really, how do we accelerate that launch cycle? How do we get enough customers into buying the product, making sure that the content looks great, that we add infographics, that we really explain how the brand wants to communicate their story, and accelerate that launch so that we can, we like to call it riding the organic wave. So you pay for a lot of traffic out of the gate. You might pay and be unprofitable for the first 3 to 6 months, but you hit a corner and then you start to get that organic traffic, and then you can really take advantage of the power of Amazon or these e-commerce marketplaces that, are really becoming the starting place for brands to launch in US retail.
Great. That's an amazing and excellent answer, I must say, Ben, because I think you touched upon something very important, is how a brand can make their presence felt and how they can ultimately connect with their audience. And it's basically by building that presence on a marketplace, how validation, how it can help the brand again to get that word of mouth or that traction in the early stages. Excellent answer.
Half of our organization is focused on calling on retail. So working with the buyers, getting products into store online, and more conversations now than ever are, how does your Amazon store look? How many reviews do you have on Amazon? What's your customer saying about your product? And all of these buying groups now, across Target or Best Buy or Walmart or, Wayfair are using Amazon as a benchmark. And it's a great place to see where brands emerge from. It's a great place to look at, market share, look at how they're communicating their brand. And every single one of our sales reps, every time they want to bring a brand, it's, hey, what does it look like on Amazon? How many reviews does it have? How much traffic have they got? Let's add it to .com, and then let's see what it does. And if it does well, let's bring it in stores. But now more than ever, retailers are using Amazon as that benchmark, as that validation point for a successful brand, a brand that has merit and, can deliver strong volume in the US marketplace. So it's interesting just seeing that transition.
Interesting. Wonderful. Let me go to Ben and ask, Ben, when you launched your D2C site and again, after your product development and your product is ready, you want to hit the nerves. You basically want to acquire those early customers. So how did you start it and how did you acquire your early customer? Paid ads, what has worked for you in the beginning? How did you acquire your first 100 or 1,000 customers, if I can be precise?
Is that for me or is that for Ben?
For you. Got it.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. No worries. Ben looked a little.
It's like, yeah, I might have 1,000 followers. I don't know what site we're talking about, but
he's like my followers on Instagram. So I think, I think Ben kind of hit it on the head on a lot of things. I think it comes down to, I just actually had this conversation with a friend who has a very successful Amazon business, and he's looking at some parameters around where he's going next. And it really comes down to doing it right out of the gate. So investing in the quality of your presentation. A lot of people try to create a great product and then maybe get cheap on the level of the photography, or they get cheap on, just the web developer himself, and they use maybe just a theme that, they think they could just plug and play and it's going to solve all their problems. And so I think, look, you have to have some working capital, obviously, to do these things, whether aggressively or nearly aggressively, in order to, we live in a place of premium presentation in terms of our brand. So it comes at a cost. I mean, I can't just go, find certain people out there to do the work that I'm requiring to do in order to provide the presentation that we provide. Same thing with manufacturing.
Yeah.
And so with that in mind, you got to take that next level of due diligence. And quite frankly, there's going to be an additional cost associated with that level of quality. But I think the answer to your question is quite simple: is do it to the best of your knowledge the right way the first time, and you'll have a much healthier platform to build on from there. Because if you try to, we did do a proof of concept in 2019, which kind of proved out those early days of product. So don't get me wrong, a lot of that was actually retail conversations. We work with some stockists. But when we moved online, it was either go all in or you can't kind of, I didn't feel like you could really kind of wet your feet and be
Yeah.
successful, considering the long-term damage it could do to brand equity, right?
Yes.
Whether that's, increasing your price 3x once you figure it out, like it just doesn't make sense to the consumer
Right.
who's been on your journey with you. And so that's the first piece of it. And then, with knowledge comes understanding whether that's the right, we have now a marketing stack that includes email, SMS, paid social, Google. We've got some really exciting kind of conversations happening with some writers that I'm bringing in who will write to best 5 styles for the summer, whatever it may be, right? Educational. Obviously,
Yeah.
it's going to provide some validity behind what we're doing and why. How do you pick the right leather jacket for you, and more importantly, what does that measurements look like? So, I think there's so many different levels of that conversation, and there's so many different levels of the depth that you can go. But one thing I've learned early days is just, you spend, especially paid advertising, you spend all this money to get a customer to your site.
Yeah.
The least you could do is continue that dialogue with them. So having some type of email structure set up, for us, it's email and SMS, obviously retargeting on. So it's just ensuring that, we have a premium product. Most 86% of people or something like that actually don't buy on the first visit. And we've worked and that's getting better with certain things we've implemented. But especially on the jackets, I guess, is that's what related to. But so you can't, you think about how many times we go window shop and then end up buying something we've seen. So,
Yes.
it's something that has to, and then to my point, it's how you set it up early days dictates what you can build on and where you see your success.
Yeah.
Because you may be seeing a lot of people come to your site and no conversions, not understanding that they're falling out the back end because you didn't set it up correctly, or haven't done anything at all. And so, unfortunately, some of these lessons learned are from, less proud mistakes I've made, but that's just the priority of learning and the priority of kind of experimentation. And I think that's allowed us to not only capture the customers we have, but obviously build hopefully lifetime customers. And then you got to deliver on customer service. And there's a facade of other things that now you've won. Now you've got to just continue to not only meet expectations, hopefully exceed expectations, because to Ben's point, there's a lot of businesses that have now come onto the online space and they're starting to really venture into, a world that they maybe not have been involved in. And so, your differentiation, your value proposition, and the way in which you present yourself as a business, and more importantly, how you care about your customer in the way in which you just handle returns, exchanges, and a number of other things that do come up as a business, really dictates, the breadth of what that can become.
Interesting. That's amazing. I mean, I'm so happy to know the details that you just mentioned about, like, it's not just about creating that premium product, but building that brand equity through presentation and paying attention to details and how that matters. Because in an online world, yes, we can drive traffic to the store, but we can't expect the conversion in the first instant. But that how that visitor can become your first time buyer, that can only happen with the presentation and with the whether the brand recall happens or not at the right time. And I think the content that you build, the presentation, the image or the photo that you put online, I think everything matters. So this is an excellent insight, maybe for any e-commerce business that want to up the game, or whether they are at an early stage or a growth stage. I think these things really, really matter. And I think they do not work in silos. I think they work, I think, in parallel. I think everything has to happen in parallel so that ultimately it impacts the conversion. So this is an excellent insight.
Yeah.
Cadogan.
Well, I think one thing that you touched on actually. Oh, sorry.
I always say brand is consistency across platforms. That's really all it is.
Yeah.
Because then wherever you go, you see either parallel messaging, similar messaging, or the same messaging.
Yeah.
But hey, if you diverge from that, your photography doesn't match your product, your customer service doesn't match the price point, you've now, diminished the value of what you mean as a brand. So that's all I was gonna say. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head there too, especially, doing it right out of the gate. And I'd say, probably 5, 7 years ago, everything was focused on, how does your retail packaging sell your products? What does your point of sale look like? And brands were always involved or investing in having great retail packaging, having a box that communicates your story, your mission, because at the time, and as, it's obviously evolved, but when you're only trying to capture the customer with display on shelf, it's a very different way of thinking about it. And there's obviously an inherent mindset shift now too for brands to think, hey, retail's now maybe not the secondary step. It's definitely the holy grail. It's where organic volume can be massive.
Yeah.
But it's not the launching point. And great packaging is beneficial and it's helpful and it's part of your brand messaging. But that content piece, having the right setups up front, understanding how to engage with your customer, taking on them on that journey, and building your brand in a completely different way that probably up until about 2-3 years ago, retail was always at the forefront of the conversation and the starting point for most major brands and partners. So having that mindset shift is obviously challenging for brands. But now that the retailers are shifting that as well, even more important to get it right out of the gate and really thinking long and hard about, how do you mine your customers? How do you, retain your customers? How do you provide them with promotions and engagement via social? And it's just a different way of thinking now. And last year accelerated that probably, 5-7 more years ahead of time.
True. Absolutely. And absolutely, the world has seen the amount of digital adoption that has happened in the last 1 year. I mean, whatever companies have been thinking of doing in the next 10 years, they managed to do it in like such a short span. Like most brands which were completely offline have to pivot to an online world and make sure, because ultimately they have to serve their consumers. So I think what Cadogan has mentioned and Ben has mentioned about making sure that when you present it, it has to be presented in the most perfect manner, because that first impression is going to create that conversion at the end. Uh, Moving on, gentlemen, my next question to you is around marketing. Marketing is such a big world, and basically the channels that have evolved. Uh, Maybe we already have so many channels and some new channel might come in, and maybe the world will move there. But having said that, what are some of the channels that Cadogan that has helped you and which you have focused your attention? Definitely all the channels are equally important, but if in your own experience, what channel has really worked well for you in making sure that you are able to engage with the target audience that you have kind of identified?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think one that has been, I don't know if the word surprising, but one that's worked really well is SMS. So I think, it depends on your customer, right? For us, we're going after somebody that, has a career. They're most likely pretty busy person, right? We do see, like, for us, just if you look at sales throughout the day, like we always get a spike in the evening. And I think that's just because our customer is rather, they're not sitting there shopping middle of the day. They're probably working, or they're probably, in meetings like this. So, I do think that's interesting. And I think, with that in mind, a text message, to the extent of how many characters that is, it's like a tweet, right? It's very short to the point. It either sparks a conversation or it doesn't. It's very binary in that regard. And so I think with that in mind, email is amazing, but we all get how many emails a day, right? So that also gets watered down over time. And I think, text messages kind of cuts through the noise, and, you can look at it, takes very little, it's got a very high open rate, obviously, because how many of us like to see that we have unanswered text messages on top of it. But, I think the point being is just the fact that, we're learning very quickly with our customer, the more direct we are, it's just the more appropriate. Now, that doesn't, I can't speak to that for others, but, I do believe that that is appropriate. And then the other things that have helped is just aligning ourselves with the appropriate kind of partners, conversationalists, in terms of brand ambassadors, kind of, if you may, influencers, celebrities. I think people are kind of saturated with the content
Yeah.
that's very promotional. And so I think having, for us, having our products on somebody that's in WrestleMania or on
Yeah.
Jimmy, like, we're not actually selling you anything. That's actually somebody that, in some of the situations, they bought the product.
Yeah.
And so my point being is just that native advertising, that organic advertising, if you may, that's more of you're on the sideline watching the activity take place, and you're like, oh wow, he actually looks pretty good too in the midst of all that. That's more powerful, I think, in this day and age than somebody kind of yelling at you with a promotion code. So I think those are the two. I mean, the traditional paid social, Google, email, we absolutely operate in those lanes. We absolutely evolve. I've got somebody coming in to assist with some optimization on that end within the next week or so, just furthering more of that. But I think it's about what can you do differently. And then another piece to that would be, we talk about technology being an asset. We've introduced a fit advisor. We partner with a company that has basically a holding company that has over 3 to 5 million body scans. They do some phenomenal work in other areas, but they've created a tool where somebody can basically, leveraging our detailed specs, basically the customer's input, and then basically the archival of all these other people that have basically been annotated, if you may, or taken note of, not from a name and so forth, but just from the standpoint of age, height, weight, what their body composition looks like. We can now make a recommendation of what product specifically is for them, right? So the value of being in retail is you get a chance to try on a medium, you try on a large, you go with the medium. Online, that creates a bit of challenge. And so the more that I can provide our customers, insight into what fit they would be and so forth, without them having to, basically remove some of that concern, we're putting them in a position to have some comfort around the buying process. And of course, there's other things that assist with that, whether it's having free returns and so forth. But I think the, at the forefront, leaning into what's the new age of marketing is going to provide you, there's a reason that those things are catching on, and it's going to provide you a benefit, one, from being some of the new earlier adopters, if you may, to those technologies, because you'll see how they evolve and how they impact your business. It's a value or unique proposition on platform, right? So people are getting experience they may not get at other stores. And then, at the same time, we provide, it just creates, it's what I talked about, that brand equity in terms of creating an experience that maybe is slightly more premium or on point than somebody else we're trying to communicate or combat with. And so, that's what I'd say. I think the traditional marketing is still very powerful, and like we're not involved in like television or out of home and so forth, but I have experience in that space, and look, a billboard's still very powerful. I mean, it gets the most views out of, it's incredible, right? You sit in traffic in LA, you're going to watch that billboard one too many times. And so there's a lot of other mediums out there, but I think in this new age and the consumer we're going after, they really appreciate some of the nuances of snackable content, as I like it to communicate it, but short, to the point, and easy access.
That's excellent, I must say, Cadogan, because I think you really kind of mentioned something very, very pivotal, which is breaking through the clutter. I think because I think the facade of marketing, we have to find our way to make sure that we are able to communicate the right thing to the consumers, and definitely it has to be more organic, it has to be more conversational, and it has to make sure that the brand and the product is getting conveyed to the consumers, because ultimately we can't sell it to everyone. We have to definitely define the buyer persona and then make sure that our conversation revolves around that buyer persona. So that's an excellent insight that you shared there, that how you make sure and how SMS is working out for you. That's an excellent. Let's touch upon that. Let me go to Ben and ask this question. Ben, the brands that you work with, uh, typically from your own experience, definitely, again, all the channels are important, but if you have to kind of start for a brand, which channels do you start with? Let's say for paid ads, definitely email is there, but paid ads, which channels do you prefer?
Yeah, I mean, because our brand partners range from brands like GoPro all the way down to back to the roots, and even up and coming new brands, because of how small and big the brand partners are, we do a lot of marketing work, and we help our brand partners strategize, develop, and execute a full suite of marketing services across, social and digital. We do PR activities. We have influencer networks and content marketing type activities. And then even just like creative services like packaging design or in-store merchandising opportunities, circulars. So there's a lot of different ways to market as it pertains to our brands and in retail. And this past year for us as a direct-to-consumer team, leveraging all of those different tools has been effective. And it's really just comes down to identifying where's the brand at in their journey. For a brand like GoPro, they're not really trying to drive market awareness for their product, but you're really trying to just hit the consumer at the closest to point of sale that you can. So we do a lot more paid search with a brand like GoPro, thinking creatively around competitive targeting. How do we identify top selling products or categories on Amazon or other platforms, and how do we try and market at those customers to steal share away from other brands potentially. A brand where, hey, it's a new product, it's a new launch, and we're really at the stage of just trying to drive awareness. We might be doing more social, digital, influencer networks to position a new and up and coming technology or consumer electronic brand that has something cool to say. It's figuring out how do you get awareness out there. So using Facebook, Instagram, digital side of it, doing more Google search. So depending again on where the brand is at in their life cycle and how much, money we kind of have to play with as well. And, the economics of the brand also come down to it. So, now in this digital world, you have to think about how does your retail optics support, e-commerce selling fees and direct to consumer shipping costs. And, in the old world, it was pretty easy to know, hey, here's my retail, here's my wholesale cost, here's, I'm able to offer 25, 30% allocated towards marketing and deploy it across a lot of different mediums. Well, now you have, different economics and supply chain economics, and all of that's changing. And so getting a handle on your profitability, getting a handle on what that marketing spend is and where you're at in your journey allows us to work with our brand partners and just really help them develop the right strategy that hits the right customer. Because again, you don't want to waste money. And so whether it's ROI driven, whether it's, just impressions and clicks and traffic, depending on those goals, you can kind of curate a marketing approach and strategy to support that. But from a conversion rate perspective, I'd say there's really no better vehicle than what Amazon has been able to do with, their AMS and their paid search. I mean, almost 50% of our e-commerce sales come through advertising sales. So identifying competitive, targets, identifying, generic keywords, using Amazon search is a great way to drive growth. It was also a huge place where lots of other people are doing the exact same thing. So cost per clicks have gone up pretty significantly in the platform, and the competitiveness on, major keywords is becoming even more, competitive. But, so thinking creatively, really looking at ROI, understanding the detail, the data, that's the amazing thing about marketing in this e-commerce world is you have so much data at your fingertips. You can really use that data to drive the right insights and identify where are you winning, where aren't you winning, and how do you start to, funnel your advertising budget into the 3, 5, 7 different tactics that are getting you that best ROI and helping you achieve your goals. It's just an ever evolving game. It's, just moving money from here to here and seeing what this does and seeing how many more impressions you can generate and clicks. And do people like that, that search term, or, as a lot of these platforms are, adding new vehicles to drive it as well, whether it's, sponsored brand and you have your banner ads at the top, or whether it's a native ad living in an Instagram or Facebook. Really see how the customer is engaging and use a lot of data to drive those insights versus, in the old world, you'd have to rely on a third party like a Nielsen or an MPD or someone to come in store and say, hey, here's how you guys are doing this. Here's what market share looks like. I'm going to, make some market wide assessments and then go charge you a lot of money for that. Well, now that data is at your fingertips. So I'd say, just using data is probably the most important thing, regardless of where you want to deploy, to do it in the right way for your brand at the right time.
Excellent. So it's all about knowing where the brand is in their life cycle and then formulating that strategy that can work in their favor, ultimately to hit those milestones like early adoption and then growth and then taking it to the next level. That's an excellent insight, Ben. And the follow-up question that is coming to my mind for both of you is around Uh, Definitely the channels that we have, but most importantly, uh, what are the milestones that we would like to hit? So, for example, in Cadogan's case, Cadogan, where do you see your brand? Are you at a beginner stage, or do you look your brand as a growth stage, or you? What do you think? What is your opinion? Let's say in the next 5 years, where do you want to see your brand? Um,
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, we're definitely in a growth state. I mean, we've month over month. It's been fun. It's month over month. New horizons, and
mhm,
uh, we keep pushing the needle and surpassing our forecast. So I think if you want to talk next 5 years, I mean, we'll be an international brand with, we'd even love to open up some stores. So whether that's just some flagship stores, I don't think in this new model, especially for the brand we are, that we would have stores, in each city per se.
mhm,
I think it would be more of a distribution model that would be focused on us going ahead and really pioneering kind of e-commerce as the foundation, supported by some really strong additional kind of channels of distribution.
mhm.
But the cool thing with e-commerce especially is that boundaries are no longer existent, right? And
Yeah.
so it creates this environment where you can really have some amazing dialogue both on your social channels, through your website, through customer service, leveraging platforms like we have for customer support like Zendesk. Like we can,
Mhm.
in live chat and all these great platforms, the conversation's ever changing. So I mean, we're on track to do very well. But with that in mind, if you may, in terms of where we see ourselves as we kind of expand, things are very, very positive. And the bigger conversation for me is not so much what are we doing 5 years from now, because that's not going to provide any immediate return,
Yeah.
but what we're doing in the interim to get to that place. And so the big thing for us is, like, we've been working probably 3-4 months on a production schedule,
Mhm,
where starting mid-May now, every week we'll drop a new product or
mhm,
restock something very pertinent to our success. And so when you talk about understanding your business, understanding your marketing stack, and building out those foundations, those provide a
mhm,
fantastic reward. But
mhm,
then how do you go ahead and increase the LTV of a lifetime value of a customer by also providing value, of course, not just a return, but more importantly, value to them, and doing so in a manner that is both creative and unique and innovative. And so we have a number of great projects unfolding, where we are literally week over week over week dropping, whether it's a new product or restock of something that people are absolutely excited about. And so that's going to get us the 5-year goal, right? So it's the evolution of the business model, taking your learnings, applying them, improving your marketing, improving your operational efficiency, your product development, and timelines around that, your production schedules. That gives me a lot of, obviously, hope and promise around where we want to be in a couple of years from now. And that's the best part.
Wonderful. So taking one day at a time and kind of making sure that you want to reach there, but definitely by doing all these short-term things to help
Exactly.
you achieve your goals. Excellent. Uh, my next question that I would like to put in front of Ben is around basically breaking the clutter. I think again, why I'm talking about this is basically for any brand. Definitely, if it's a brand which is already popular, already doing all the right things, again, it becomes easy for them because they have already formulated everything. But what about, let's say, a new brand, let's say, which just want to get into the field of e-commerce, want to start? Definitely, maybe they are on day zero, but what is that advice, Ben, that you would like to give them so that every year they can see themselves growing? Definitely, growth can be measured in different ways. One way can be the brand perception that they are able to create in a year where people at least know about the brand and have a great brand recall. And second can be in terms of the conversions that they can be having. So what do you think? What is that advice that you would like to give, let's say, for a very early stage brand which want to venture into retail?
Yeah, I mean, I think, most important is patience. I'd say, it's a different way of building a brand and launching a product. And launching, I guess we'll hone in on Amazon specifically as a key place to as brands are launching. And it's the biggest thing that I guess I communicate to my brand partners that are looking to launch and execute a new brand or a new division or category or assortment, whatever it looks like, and it looks different for every brand.
Mm-hmm.
But it's patience, and it's also thinking about how do you need to invest in your growth. Amazon and digital, it's a pay-to-play environment, and you're competing with everyone and anyone. And so, being patient, understanding that, hey, it requires marketing and investment out of the gate. It requires reviews and traffic and having good content. And the content piece is also something that's just a bigger nuance for a lot of companies. So,
Yeah.
it's not just having 5 images of your products. It's now having a video, having a 30-second video, having different types of videos for different types of marketing deployments. So it's thinking about how do you ensure you have all the right assets, that you have the right brand story, and you have the right launch strategy, and then patience to let it play out. I'd say, our unsuccessful relationships are ones that think, hey, my brand can be on page 1 in month 1.
Yeah.
Well, that's not realistic unless maybe you're a brand like GoPro.
Yeah.
And you launch a new SKU. Certainly there you can get on page 1. But just understanding what that journey looks like and understanding the path to gaining reviews, to setting your brand up the right way. And thinking about too, how do you leverage, PR? PR is a great place for a new and upcoming brand to get involved. And so we will work with several different PR agencies to help our brand partners showcase new products, get into different publications, whether it's men's health guides or, various other mediums that, we've worked with a lot of newer brands, especially last year, there was a lot of brands popping up in the cleaning space. So one of our key partners is a UV sanitization device product for your phone. Phone Soap's one of the leading players in that space. And it was a product that had been around for the last 5 or 7 years. I don't know exactly when they developed it, but there was clearly a catalyst last year, and we helped get them into Best Buy. We got them into Target. We've added those brands into key areas. So really thinking about, what are the, there was clearly a market demand perpetuating growth. Well, how do we identify that? How do we work with those brand partners and help them get into retail, get into, different PR cycles, so that you can communicate that story and that, identify that new customer and new audience. So I'd say, summarize, being patient, knowing that you have to spend money to grow. Reviews are key, and leveraging influencers, leveraging PR to really drive that awareness as well. It's a great way to start.
Excellent. That's a very, very amazing insight that you shared, that knowing when to launch and having that patience and making sure that you have all the right digital tools and assets in order to make sure that your marketing and your messaging is clearly conveyed and it's succinct, and it's making sure that ultimately it's all about creating that distinction. It's all about creating that presence in front of your consumers, and definitely that presence creation is going to take some time. So making sure that you're always there in front of the consumers, and the marketing messaging. Excellent piece of advice, Ben. Let me go to Cadogan again. And Cadogan, for you as a brand, when you started, are you bootstrapped or are you funded? I mean, what are your thoughts on on this whole piece?
I mean, I think one is what I've learned with this particular business, and I've said it before, I think it's a very cash intensive business. So no, I don't critique anybody who has, basically gotten outside funding to support their growth, because a lot of people don't understand, just in the business we're in with jackets, and it's a conversation where, working through the financing just for, a more premium product, to have the scale that we're experiencing, we have to plan that cash advance, days out, and we've gotten some favorable payment terms from our production, our manufacturers. But even then, obviously, it's you got to be careful of your cash flow. Me personally, I mean, it's just the way things played out. So me personally, I kind of was in New York for a couple of years, working in a management position across New York and Canada. Got the opportunity to be out in Singapore. Basically was able to put a few dollars away that, well into the 6 figures, that kind of helped get us off the ground. And, you know, as the business evolves, you know, I can see us bringing on a partner when we're ready to open those first flagship stores or do something that's going to really kind of cement, you know, a certain position in the market. At this time, you know, we've been able to work through those conversations just through kind of the growth of the business, the investment that I made, and then the ever-changing kind of environment that we're in now with e-commerce kind of doing very well. So, but at the same time, you know, I've been surprised at times how quickly cash can be out of pocket. And so with that in mind, like I said, I completely understand if, you know, I'm just in a fortunate position going into this, whereas a lot of people that do come from a creative field, it's, you know, it's the economics behind, you know, some of your best creators that aren't creative directors for Gucci or something of that nature. You know, they're not unfortunately, you know, being able to, you know, live the same as somebody that's a software sales executive or something of that nature. And so they're not able to save as much. And so I can appreciate a lot of designers coming out and getting that financial support to do something special, and rightfully so. But yeah, it's just the dynamics of how things worked out for us.
Wonderful. So you are running it on your own, but definitely if a partner comes in, it's like an additional resource or help. But ultimately, I think whenever a partner comes in and if it's the right alignment, I think great things can happen, because whatever you can do in, let's say, 10 years, maybe can be scaled down in a year or two. And all the marketing and everything, ultimately, it's all about creating the presence. And I think if the product has already found the validation, it's just a matter of putting your message across, putting the product in front of the consumers. And that definitely requires obviously the capital, and it's intensive. But I think you have a right strategy in place, because I think if you're able to create that niche for yourself, sky's the limit. And you need to be patient, because I think ultimately we are running marathons, not sprints. So and it's you have to learn and evolve and constantly experiment. uh, while we are coming to an end of this panel discussion, and I think we have very little time left, maybe for one more round of question, is around basically technology, how technology can be a game changer, how it can be an enabler to scale up, because it's proven, it's happening. And I think technology has evolved so much, augmented reality, virtual reality, maybe the Microsoft HoloLens, where people will be able to experience products maybe in 3 dimension in their own environment. It's going to be great experience ultimately for the consumer. What are your thoughts as leaders who work in this field in retail and e-commerce? Let me go to Ben first, then I'll go to Cadogan. Ben?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a couple sides to that coin. There's the technology from the product perspective, and being that Best Buy is one of our largest customers, we get to work with a lot of really cool new and up and coming consumer electronic tech brands, and just obviously seeing how those companies are evolving, seeing where the technology is going, and how quickly things can pop up to address a concern like the pandemic we had last year. Is interesting, and that's clearly how technology is evolving from a product and development. And we're working with partners that have wearable Fitbits that can, or non-Fitbit, wearable type products that allow you to check your oxygen and health and all these other things. So there's clearly an emergence of technology in that space around health, around fitness. But from a business perspective, I'd say technology was critical for last year. At the time, when the shutdowns happened, all of Amazon's fulfillment centers shut down. So we had to establish integrations into every one of our partners' warehouses, and we had a lot of our big brand partners flipping the switch to executing direct-to-consumer shipping. So adding different integrations to give yourself supply chain flexibility. We've added integrations into many retailers and different warehousing, and having that technology to set up your supply chain allowed us to capitalize on a lot of changing trends last year. And I think, even, going beyond that, the amount of softwares and technology and innovation that's happening around this e-commerce landscape is great. It's not the world where I have to go and develop all of my own tech today. I can go have a conversation with 15 other providers of a really interesting technology that might have a slightly unique lens or thought process or methodology. And there's so much available to us. So it's identifying, hey, what are your technology needs? What do you need to develop internally, but where can you identify strong partners across key platforms, whether it's advertising or whether it's digital, whether it's email marketing, but identifying strong partners that have that technology, because now more than ever, there's so much there, and it doesn't need to be recreated. It just needs to be curated in a way that pulls in the best components of different softwares and technology that's out there to kind of build a very flexible supply chain and operating model. And I'd say just flexibility is key, and technology can support that in any which way.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, you summed it up really, really well in terms of how, as someone who's working with the brands and knowing all the challenges and the opportunities, and how making sure that you're using the technology for your own advantage, because I think there's so much available these days, I think, and innovations are constantly coming in terms of like AI, machine learning. It has grown phenomenally. And I think if you're able to deploy it at the right point of time, sky's the limit for growth. Excellent, Ben. Thank you so much for sharing that. Let me go to final words from Cadogan on this. What are his thoughts? And definitely for a jacket which someone can look on a store in 2 dimensions, what do you think the role of technology will be, again, ultimately to help the consumers? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think, to Ben's point, internally, I have a software background, so I think it gives people back time, right? Anytime you have automation, just looking at our customer service, introducing macros, which are basically snippets of information that can be, basically updated very quickly to provide customers the greatest value. And so, giving back customers time is in result giving them more time with customers on the phone, live chat, helping customers using this up here, not so much, down here. And so that's been fascinating. I think Shopify is the same way. Companies like yourself creating applications that fit into the bigger conversation of what kind of that environment looks like, allows you to work with best of breed, which is a very powerful thing when you're running a business versus living in a very kind of archaic infrastructure where you're committed, whether it's through an agreement or contractual or so forth, to something that technology is evolving at such an incredible rate that things become kind of almost obsolete in some regard, or not the best way to move forward. So that's kind of fascinating when you think of, I approach business in that capacity, because the way in which you kind of set yourself up, the keyword that Ben used is nimble, because this environment and this landscape is changing every day. And to the point of, well, when that virtual reality or augmented reality experience is so refined that, someone puts on the clothes and the challenge right now is a lot of it's almost like CAD drawings. It's not actually 3D modeling to the point that it looks legitimate. And that's kind of the challenge in the space we're in right now. But when I look at like what Amazon's done, where you can take a piece of furniture and then use your camera to basically put it up against the wall and see, where that fits in the arena of your living room. That's first class. I mean, that's world class. And so, where that could become appropriate for clothing and so forth, whether it's just looking in your mirror and that reflection now comes back with you wearing that garment, whatever it may be, it's just so powerful. And so I want the space to move in that direction. I'm a huge advocate of leveraging technology to just create an immersion experience that people just have more comfort around e-commerce. And then internally, it's how do we provide basically technology just to facilitate better communication across cross-functional teams, alleviating some of that unnecessary admin work and creating basically attribution of data and more importantly, giving people time back. And so, I think the companies that invest in technology see technology as the gift that we've been given to live and be successful in this new day and age. Sometimes you get kind of the old guard versus the new guard, which I've experienced all too often. And I think, in this new age, technology is so powerful, and either be present and relevant enough to understand it, or find some people around you that are young enough or present or relevant enough to understand it, and keep those people close to you, because you just can't be ignorant, or you'll end up like a lot of these businesses like a Blockbuster that unfortunately are no longer with us. So
Well, that's an excellent thought there, Cadogan. And I must say, this has been an excellent panel discussion with Cadogan and Ben today. And I would really like to take this opportunity to say thank you so much on behalf of my team at Analito for joining this panel today and for sharing all the amazing insights. And I think some of the pointers that you touched upon are really, really interesting. It's like an MBA in marketing in an hour's time because all these points are so relevant and extremely essential because it's not just come in handy when you are at a beginner stage, but at a growth stage, and even if you have reached a scale. And I think whether it's supply chain or creating that product differentiation or creating that brand equity and making sure that you are adapting to technology to scale up your brand to ultimately help your consumers and how it can make an impact. Because I think uh, today's consumers more than ever have access to information. They have become more knowledgeable. They are looking for something which complements them. They're looking for products and services that complements them, that can make them feel good and look good. And I think that's what people are looking for these days. They're willing to pay a premium also if the products are really great. And that's what is driving the whole retail world and e-commerce world. And we are going to see amazing innovations and amazing things that are going to come in the retail space soon. Maybe 5 years. I think whatever we can think may happen in 5 years may happen in the next 1 year for sure. And I think with this, Cadogan, I must say I'm impressed with the product that you have. I would love to get hands on the jacket that you sell and someday. And it's amazing. And I think thank you so much for sharing those wonderful insights. And I really look forward to hosting you again and to learn from you in the future. Ben, I must say this has been an excellent panel discussion again. Thank you so much for taking out time and joining and sharing and kind of touching upon all those little nuances that often get overlooked or typically don't get attention. Or again, it's a guidance thing. Again, for a brand to get that kind of guidance comes at a cost. And again, so I think what you shared today is extremely valuable, and someone who gets hand to listen to this panel discussion maybe forward will again can use these insights and implement them in their business and to help them grow more. So wonderful. Thank you so much for joining in, and we'd love to host you again. Thank you, Cadogan. Thank you, Ben.
Awesome.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Ben.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Kuldeep.
Thanks, Bobby.
Thank you.
Have a good
Have a
Appreciate
great
it.
day.
You too, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.